Hey, I know, like, you know where I'm at, like, hey, Jeff, no, I got you, brody. Look, hey, let's go, hey. Real life, real talk, never fall, we ain't doing that. Want me fall off, but I can't, I'm just too attached. I was so lost, I ain't going back. Never fall, never fall. We on the road, yeah, we on the road. Every day like the Olympics gon' go. Yeah. I'm in control, I thought you should know. Real life, real talk, never fall.
Hey guys, what's up? We're back. Harry's here, and today we have a special guest, IFBB Pro, Shay CROTTY, actually natural pro, we'll point that out. It's quite relevant to why she's on today. You'll remember a few weeks ago, we got a question in about natural competitions, and it was something along the lines of how can natural competitions be, live up to unnatural competitions, basically, untested competitions. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but part of my answer was that I have a lot of respect for natural athletes, especially in this day and age when it's very easy for, you know, it's not even that it's easy, but it's very tempting to go down that route. And to not do that, to make choice not to do that, and to, you know, build a career not doing that, I think it's you got to respect that. So welcome, Shay, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's basically why you're on. That's why you're important. We want to kind of dive in there. So basically what I was saying was, like, this day and age in bodybuilding, let's be honest, majority of people are using something. It might not be steroids, but they're using something that you can't go to the supplement store and buy unless you're in a tested federation, which you're not in a tested federation. So what I was saying was, and look, I have no, like, whatever you want to do, you do. Like, that's how I view it. But it's very rare these days that you get someone that competes at a high level that doesn't decide, I'm gonna try it. And, you know, I understand why people want to try it, but yeah, so it's for males and females, but you've got to respect that. So basically I want to ask you, this is how we're going to start it. I want to ask you, what was your main reason for, well, what is your main reason for wanting to be a natural athlete? Like, what makes you want to do that versus, you know, and it could be anything, it could be morals, it could be health, whatever, but just tell me a little bit about it, because I've never actually asked you this.
What?
Well, once you get this out of the way, I think what would be really fascinating for me and for a lot of people to hear is your backstory. But
we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Yeah. I just like to start at the beginning. First, there was Adam.
Nah. Well, firstly, like, I think when you see what you guys said in that podcast about, you know, natural is the minority, 100%, and I am all for it. I agree 100% in that respect. It's not the showcase that like the Olympia is versus the natural Olympia. So I'm on the same wave as you guys when it comes to that. Myself, though, it just never really resonated with me. I didn't see the need. The way that I've grown up, the family that I have, like, I have genetic specimens that run throughout my family and all athletes. I played for the Tall Ferns, so I've been around drug-free sport. Like, I played basketball for 18 years. So, like, morally, it just didn't sit well with me. It didn't resonate with me. And it also just didn't really factor into my goals. So, like, for me, I don't want to go and win the Olympia. So why the hell would I then go down that route and potentially ruin my health, have issues, complications later on in life, sound like a man, like, all that sort of stuff just didn't really fit well with me. So I was like, nah, I don't need to do it, because that's not my ultimate goal, really.
Fair enough. We're going to come back to this because there's other avenues. We've got a lot of questions, so I'm trying to tie it all together. But you mentioned the basketball, so tell us a little bit about that, because I honestly feel like, especially for females, I feel like females that came up through sports and then transitioned, I feel like it's a huge advantage personally. But talk a little bit about that, like, who you played for, how long you played, and why you stopped.
So I started playing for, I'm from Christchurch, so I started playing for Canterbury when I was 10. And I played for 18 years. I retired in 2020. I started with Canterbury, and then I played all throughout high school. I went and played in America. I then came back, played for the Tall Ferns, and then went and played in Australia as well, in Melbourne. I got quite a significant injury when I was living in America. I tore everything in my leg and was told that I wouldn't play basketball again. And I think that's transitioned over. Like you said, it reflects really good back into bodybuilding, is because like the mental side of playing professional sport helps tremendously with the side of being able to compete. So yeah, I can play until 2020. I retired due to having arthritis and needing to pick between basketball and bodybuilding. And
could you play after that injury?
Yeah, I did. I played for another 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How did you injure it? What did you do?
I would chase down a fast break and it went off the hinge one way, and then I got smacked and went off the hinge the other way.
Ow.
So yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
You did a good job.
Yeah.
I did every ligament apart from my lateral. So yeah, it was pretty nasty.
Was it a when you did? So did you say you basically had to pick one or the other? You got to a point.
Well, it got to the point, like realistically, if you're doing bodybuilding and playing basketball, they're two sports that do not complement each other at all.
No, but it wasn't a case of you had to stop basketball, so you chose.
Oh no. No, I just decided. I knew that I had to decide one or the other.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that. For some reason I thought you had to stop basketball. I always thought that. I didn't know.
No.
When was your first show?
In 2016, so 7 years ago.
Oh yeah, so you were doing both for a bit.
Yeah, I did both from 2016. I moved to Australia in 2017. And then yeah, I retired in 2020. So I played for like 4 years.
Oh yeah. How many shows did you do amateur? Roughly?
6.
Because you won your pro card twice, right?
Yeah, I did INBA in 2016, 17, and 18.
Yeah.
And then moved to IFBB 2019, did South Islands, then won my pro card, then did it again in 2021. Yeah.
How did you find, like, from that, like, so you started competing 2016, in terms, like, obviously your physique changed, but how did you find, like, your mindset towards bodybuilding changed between then, not even until now, but just basically from being an amateur? So when you did your first show, did your last show, when you won your pro card, did you know, was there much of a mindset difference, or was it just a matter of just continuing to do the business?
No, massively. Like, I think because like when I first started bodybuilding, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do it for fun. Like, it was a one and done. I did it because my mum did it. I thought it was cool. I was pretty fat at the time, so I was like, hey, like, do something about it.
You were simultaneously playing professional basketball.
Yes, yeah. So like my first...
I think that's an important fact.
Yeah.
3 sets of curls. Oh, I might as well go and do it, and I'll win it probably too.
No, it was just more like we finished basketball in like June, and I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do now? And then the show was in like October, so I was like to Mum, hey, I want to compete, and she was like, oh, why not? You know, let's do it.
Fair enough. Did you win all your shows as an amateur? Don't you dare say yes.
Yes.
Oh, you pissed off.
Oh no, I no.
The internet's dropping out.
No, I came second. I went to Natural Olympia in Las Vegas, and I came second.
Okay.
There we go.
What a failure. When did becoming a pro ever become a goal for you prior to going pro at any point?
The second time, yes.
Second time.
Yeah. The second time. The first time, no. I actually embarrassingly didn't know what a pro card was the morning of the show. I had no idea. It didn't even. I just showed up and they were like, "Oh, pro cards have been given out," and I was like, "Okay, cool." Like,
so right at this point, there's going to be a lot of people either kicking their computers across the room, throwing their phones down,
throwing their Winstrol down the toilet.
That's it. Picking up a basketball. They're going to, how do I incorporate shooting baskets into my training program?
Just turn into a psycho. Like,
what year did you first turn pro? Was it 2020?
2019.
19, and then you next competed
2021, just because COVID, the COVID year.
And your goal going into that second show was like, hey, I want to go pro now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there was also a big change in physique as well. It kind of what you're saying mindset wise, like first you didn't even know what a pro card was. Now you want to get a pro card. It was kind of like with you don't care. But
no.
Yeah, no. Watching like the first time you won your pro card, you didn't have a pro physique. But when you won it the second time, you look like a pro. So it was
I think if you never saw the second pictures, you'd think the first show was good.
Yeah.
But then you see the second show and you're like, oh yeah, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring it. I'm just gonna bring it up.
Do you have to?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try anyway.
No, I'd played a basketball final 2 weeks before getting my pro card in 2019. So I played a 40-minute final, and I was like, how that you should not theoretically be able to do that and then go and get on a stage.
Yeah. You know what? You know who else thinks that? Everybody else. Apparently not you.
I had no right.
Well, obviously you did, because you killed it.
Perfect example. 19 and is there a, oh, there we go. That's what I wanted.
Oh.
So you can really see the difference. I mean, everything was there in 2019. I think one of the major things was just got a bit leaner on the right. And obviously everything's improved as well. But
yeah.
Like even the posing is so much like you posing like an amateur on the left, but posing like a pro on the right. Like everything about that is night and day. So that was so that obviously is your best look as an amateur. Okay, we're gonna move on now to professional stuff. So before we do that, we'll just bring something up because I mean most people are gonna know who you are, but there'll be some people who don't. And here we go. So this was a natural show, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. That's your first show?
Why would you do that to me?
You can still see like the
everything's there.
Yeah, you see the potential.
Everything's there.
Oh, yeah, that was my first show in 2016.
And this show was 2000. This was last year, right?
That was last year. That was my debut. Yeah.
Boom. Okay. So what I was going to ask you was, how did you find? This is going to be distracting, so I'll bring it back up if we need to. But how did you find traveling and competing overseas? Like, what was the experience? Not show itself, but just the experience of like, I'm a pro now, so I'm going to my show. I'm going to go on a plane and blah blah blah. Like being a pro, how did you find it versus being an amateur?
I felt like there was way less pressure, like externally. I feel like there's a lot of pressure within, like when you compete within New Zealand against your friends and against people you know, in front of people you know. Going overseas, the only pressure that I faced was the pressure that I put on myself, which ended up being a lot. But
as you do,
it was a really good. It was not a good experience. But it was an awesome experience because you got to see like how it's actually done, what bodybuilding really is internationally, like standing against everyone's like natural competitors. Oh, it's not that great. While it's not the Olympia and it's not the same, it's still fucking amazing. Like I was standing there next to these women and I was just like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, why? But it was just cool. And to experience it with mum, you know, like she coached me right through until this year or into last year. So it was a really cool experience, but just very different. I think the level, everyone's very different backstage. The way the show's run, everything is it's professional, like it is what it says it is.
Yeah. And what you were saying about the physiques, I think like with a class like figure, especially, I feel like that's the class you're going to get those freaky physiques because a lot of it is so genetically based, you know, like you either have those figure doubts or you don't. You've got the taper or you don't. Drugs aren't going to make that. Drugs are just going to make you bigger. So I feel like a lot of the time it's going to be the same thing. It's just going to be a little bit smaller. Like a smaller version. Don't have like maybe not as hard, but it's still the physiques are still going to be wild. And obviously you saw that yourself. Where did you place in that show?
I was 9th of 15.
Yeah. So I mean, in your first pro show, to be like pretty much in the middle, that's not a bad effort. And I know you weren't happy with for whatever reason, you weren't happy with what you presented.
I was happy physically with what I presented. I was just really pissed off with myself. Like,
Nervous, right?
I freaked the fuck out. I was like the epitome of amateur. I ran. I think I was on there for like 10 seconds. I was like, bang, 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 get off. So
Do you feel like that was just because it was the first one? Like, do you feel like now that you've done it once, you'll be more confident? Or
I hope so. No, I think so. And because I was first, because it goes alphabetical order, I was first on stage. Just the entire moment eclipsed me. Just before I went on stage, she was like 6 foot. You know, she turned around to me and she said, "Are you bikini or you figure?" And I was like, "Ah."
Oh, get out. That's just stupid though to say that. Like,
I know, but it worked. I'll give it to her. So yeah,
Purposeful.
I reckon.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that you say that, like about nerves and how they affect your performance when you've already competed in other sports at a super high level. So your expectation of what you can do, and other people might externally look at how they would imagine your confidence would be, and then to hear that it wasn't what they'd expect is like extremely relatable. Because most of us might, we might think, oh well, Shay's won everything that she's done, and she was a professional athlete prior to this, and da 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 da. And then we hear, okay, so you went over there, and the moment still caught you. I mean, there's a good lesson in that, I think, and everybody else in their terms of their emotional preparation and just getting ready for the moment.
Yep.
At every level, I guess.
It's pretty crazy because, like, I obviously played not as high level as you, but I played relatively high level in sports before bodybuilding, and I got so, like when I played like club level, I was fine, but whenever I played for like rep teams, I'd get so nervous, like so nervous to the point where I couldn't perform properly. I'd make stupid mistakes just because I'm not relaxed and I didn't have confidence and blah blah blah. But with bodybuilding, I never ever got nerves ever, because I was always nervous that I wouldn't perform. But like when you go to your show, in my mind, the work's been done. I don't have to do anything today. All I have to do is go on stage and pose. I know how to pose. Like, I'm not going to pose bad. I know how to hit a front double bicep. I know how to hit a side chest. So I never felt nerves in that regard, because I'm like, I've done the work. But when you're playing sports, you can do the work and still play badly. You can do all the work plus more than everyone else and still have a bad game. You know what I mean? So I got way more nervous for sport than I ever did, but I never felt like I was real bad with nerves with sports, but with bodybuilding, nothing.
Totally the other
it's interesting that it can be, it's completely opposite, but it's also cool that people can hear that you get nervous. Because people look at people like yourself, you don't get nervous. What have you got to be nervous about? Look at you. But it doesn't necessarily, it's not about how you look, it's just a mental thing. But there's obviously things we can do now, and we've got resources now that there's people that, their job is mental skills, mental performance and whatnot for sports athletes and stuff like that. When you can't, that's why I asked you before, like, do you feel like because you've had the experience, you would now be confident? And, if you are, you are. And if you're not, well, there's things you can do to help with that. And it's almost, I've talked to, obviously, Dave Neath from the gym. He's one of the best in the country, and I've talked to him a lot. And it's almost about hypnotizing yourself at times into creating like a alter ego. It's like you're not yourself it's like when a boxer goes to the ring, they're not themselves, and it can be the same with any sport, So, but it's interesting. I find that really interesting. But I don't know. I'll be interested to see how you go to the next one. But anyway, tell us about the next one. What's next for you?
Going back to Virginia. So there's only one natural pro show on the calendar, and that's back in Virginia, which is on the 17th of November. So back to the States, back to the same show. So I think it's good because, I do know what to expect this time. And what is it, 22 weeks or something?
So
something like that.
Yeah, I think it's 22. I think it's 22 on the weekend. I think
something like 22 weeks.
So I wanted to. A few of the questions went this way, so I wanted to like tie it in now. Obviously, you've done shows as an amateur. You've done multiple shows as an amateur. But what's been the difference? I know what's been the difference, but I want you to tell the story. What's been the difference between like show to show as an amateur versus show to show as a pro, and why?
Not eating like a dickhead versus eating properly. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by it, but I'm not embarrassed by it. Prior to, us starting, I was eating enough for my pinky. I just wouldn't eat. I had no issue with going to the gym, and I was very arrogant in the terms of I'm getting better, so it's fine. And I just, I didn't eat. And then really, you've ground up sort of my metabolism out, sort of everything out, and I'm eating now a house. And my body's just completely changed. And I think that switch flipped when I went overseas and competed as a pro. I was like, oh, I'm not all good. I've got to do something differently. So 100% it's the food, the food aspect.
It's just that big fish, small fish scenario, right? Like when you're here,
100%.
you won, like with,
Yeah.
not, I'm not going to say you didn't put an effort, because your low effort is still what I've seen it. It's still more than a lot of people's, but it's nowhere near what you could have been doing. And then you go there and you're like, okay, I came ninth. I've never been ninth in anything in my life. How are we going to improve on that? Well, let's actually use this time properly. And you have. So, I mean, the proof will be in, it should be in it now, will be. It will be. The proof will be in the pudding.
No pressure.
But that's a good lesson though, because it can be easy to not look at, like, for a lot of people, like especially in bodybuilding, there's always, no matter where you are, there's always going to be, unless you're Phil Heath in his prime or Ronnie Coleman in his prime, there's always going to be someone that's probably better than you, and it's probably working harder than you as well. So complacency is like in all things, not just with bodybuilding, but complacency is like, it's just a killer, it's gonna,
it's the death of success.
100%.
So you kind of this. I got a personal question now. I've never actually asked you this, but obviously you've built a crazy physique naturally. Have you ever wondered, I wonder what my physique would look like if I used things? Of course, right? You're only human.
I'm human.
Have you ever been tempted?
No.
Never.
No, that's one thing, hand on heart, like absolutely, like probably every other day I'm like, damn, imagine what would you look like? But never to the point of being, I'm going to do it or I want to know about it. So
I know this. I already know this. I just wanted to hear you say it.
I'm human. It would be interesting without a doubt. But
I mean, it's cool. It's cool because I mean, you can be a role model as well, not just to females, but to guys, because a lot of people these days think, oh, I need to take things to look like this. I mean, I get girls sending me photos of other girls like, do I need to take gear to like this? And I'm like, you're bikini, you've done chill, you can build that muscle. But it must be frustrating, because I'm sure you get a lot of girls being like, oh, I'm going to be like you, but then you see the effort they're putting in and you're like, you're putting in like an eighth of what I put in, if that. You're not going to get to anywhere close to this level without doing what you're doing. And also as well, it's bodybuilding and genetics are important. So probably don't have the same genetics, plus they're putting in an eighth of the work. It's frustrating. You try and tell them this. I mean, I get sometimes people message me about you and say, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but you're not doing what she's doing. Like, oh, I saw, or not just you, but in terms, I've got a few, girls that eat a lot of food. And, oh, I'd love to eat like that. I'm like, well, you can, but you've got to be consistent with like them. You've got to train like them. Like you're not, that it must get annoying. It must get a little bit annoying when, just with people, everyone wanting the outcome. It's a good thing.
Let's be clear though, Shay and Geordie. I'm sure it's not as annoying as you're lying.
Oh God.
That's got to be
even I. That has got to be
the most common thing that people are gonna say, because primarily from my expectation, from my experience, because I don't do any work, they don't train hard. They're not consistent. So rather than say, or they've got less than amazing genetics. So rather than accept any of those things, they'll rather just say, no. The only reason that she looks like that is because of all these things that she's pretending that she's not doing. So that's got to be your greatest frustration, right? Or at least in terms of dealing with people in the industry.
It does get
my blood has just risen. No, it is. I think because people, and they also forget, and it's the same probably with you guys as well, it's the amount of time you've been in the industry as well. It's somebody that's coming in a year or so or a year or two in, and they're like, oh, I'm going to look like you in 5 minutes. I'm like, that's insulting. Like, been doing this for 7 years and been an athlete for most of my life. And I'm like, don't say, like, I just think it's like unnecessary.
Even with gear, girls don't look like that. So
Yeah, 100%.
Well,
100%.
yeah.
And I think that's the key. It's the mentality that those people have.
Yes. It's like, are you going to, like, what pave are you going to pave yourself? You know, don't look at somebody else and be like, I'm going to look like that person, or I want to look like that person. That's like me saying, I'm going to look like Sig Gillen, the Olympia, 6-time Olympia figure champion. Impossible. You know, you just got to be realistic, I think, with expectations of what your genetics are, what your body structure is, how hard you work. If you're working piss poor, then please don't come around and say it, kind of thing.
And also how much you can put. Like I've got a few females who eat tons of food, and it's no secret that they're also my most consistent clients. My clients who train the hardest. They don't miss meals, they don't cheat, they don't change shit, they don't miss their cardio, they don't miss training sessions. And it's like, it's not rocket science. They've built a metabolism because they've allowed it to happen. And you don't have a naturally great metabolism. We weren't going to do this, but let's run. How many high carb days a week do you do? 1 or 2? I can't remember.
2.
Okay, I'm gonna get it up.
I'm on it today.
Just while you talk about how much food she eats, I'm just gonna. I don't need my feelings to be hurt here.
You're like, fuck you all. Oh, she's rough.
There we go. So I'm not going to screen share it because it'll show the whole program, but the high carb day, just so people can get an idea, because we keep talking about all this food, and I'm not giving examples. So meal 1. I mean, if you want to try this at home, be my guest. You won't. 150 grams of rice flakes, 150 grams of egg whites, 150 grams of berries, 100 grams of banana. Meal 2.
How much banana?
100 grams. Meal 2, 100 grams of chicken breast, 420 grams of white rice, 50 grams of pineapple. Meal 3, pre-workout meal, 24 grams of whey isolate, 120 grams of rice flakes, 1 best ugly bagel, 15 grams of jam, 100 grams of banana. This is so much food. And then it carries on, and then the last meal of the day, the meal 4 is the same as meal 2, and then meal 5 is 9 pieces of sushi, 2 kiwi fruit, and then we've got a post-workout as well. So it's so, I didn't realize it was that much. It's so much. I forget, and then I open it, I'm like, how are you eating this? But it just goes to show. It just goes to show that that's a reflection of consistency, 100%, and that's the difference between someone being a pro.
You find as well, though, people, like, it's really interesting how many people cock up from week to week to week,
Yes.
you know, and they find the excuses for it. I think, you know, and it's one thing, you know, I've talked to mum about it, and it's like, I've cocked up once with, you know, 12 weeks in, and I'll never forget it. You know, 12 weeks, and I didn't eat for like 2 days. I went back to old habits, and I've never felt so rubbish in my life. And I was like, but then people do that week in, week out, expect results and stuff. And I was like, that kind of is a big difference. That broke me. When that happens, because obviously there's people like that, what happens with their plan is it just never changes. There's little changes, little dips and valleys, and you try and start working things up, and then they miss the meals, cheat again, so you got to pull it down, and you just get nowhere with it. And it's also reflected in the progress. So the only way to build up a metabolism the way we have is like extreme consistency, week to week to week to week to week to week to week, and just getting that food in and keeping the digestion healthy, and blah 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 blah. And like I said, that all just comes back to you can't do any of that without consistency. So I definitely see it, but yeah, it's no fun to work with because it's like you don't get anywhere. It gets frustrating. But anyway, so we got a bunch of questions, but before I get into them, Harry, do you have any questions for Shay of your own?
I sort of feel like we're just covering things as we go. I was going to ask about so you're in Christchurch?
No, I'm in Auckland.
Oh, you're in Auckland. Oh,
He was in Christchurch.
I'm in Auckland now.
You were in Christchurch. How many currently competitive? So this is a conversation that we have pretty frequently. Well, you know, in the podcast about pros competing. So how many figure pros do we have in New Zealand?
That are still competing.
There's none really, is there? I feel like it might just be.
Oh
no,
Jess,
maybe.
Jess
Jess.
Chandy.
Yes.
Yep.
I know Steph is going to compete. Steph
Is that
Hooper,
Jess's,
she won.
Jess's client?
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I think she's competing at some stage.
Jenny just went pro like 2 years ago, so she's surely still competing.
Yep. Honest, oh God, who won last year? The 21-year-old, absolutely outstanding.
Is it Jasmine?
Jasmine.
Oh, yeah, I've seen her,
Oh,
yeah.
crazy, like insane physique. Like, oh my God.
Holy hell.
Mind blowing.
Jaw
Yeah.
on the floor.
Yeah.
Do you think so what with there only being the one natural pro show to do you think probably not fly all the way to the US to do one that isn't one of the natural ones, but if they had something over here or in Australia, would you look at that?
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. I know that there's been talks about it for quite a while about having one here, but I think the logistics of having it with the amount of athletes that we have, I wouldn't go overseas and compete in a non-tested show. I don't think I'd put myself through that. But yeah, I would if it was close to home, 100%.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I reckon it'll happen eventually.
But yeah, like there's just not that many still competing.
Yeah.
Well, I think with the Australia show, they used to have that figure division, right? So hopefully that comes back.
I mean, some could come out of the woodworks if they really wanted to. So.
I mean, there's going to be another pro this year in figure, so it's not slowing down. You know, there's going to be, there'll be another one, there'll be another one next year. So hopefully, everyone just keeps competing, so it doesn't one starts and another one stops, kind of thing. Hopefully, get some momentum happening. But it would be cool to see that, because when was the last time there was a figure show here? It must have been.
I don't even know.
I mean, they had them in Australia. At the what was it, Harry? Now
it used to be FedEx, and then they had, I think, when they had the Arnold here, they had it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
They cancelled the FedEx, didn't they? Though, and the
FedEx became
Arnold, right?
The Arnold, and then because of COVID, I don't know what they're doing now with that. So we don't have that anymore. But I'm assuming that Tony will bring that back. Yeah.
And the Australian figure girls are massive. Like they are. Oh, they're just leaps and bounds. So it'd be quite cool at the same time if it did happen.
Well, like there's a development situation in terms of their just muscularity, right? But I feel like that if you have the correct amount of muscle on your frame and it's distributed in the right ways, like yours is, that it's not going to be overridden by the amount of muscle one of them has. No. I think I'm pretty excited to see what happens when you with another year under your belt, having built your calories up so high, put on so much tissue, to see what that looks like at the end of the year and see how competitive that is. Because I think there's a point, figure is a class where there's a certain look, and I think at the top, those genetic freaks at the top are very difficult for anybody to compete with. But I feel like past the top few, it becomes anybody can be competitive, because it's more of an even field, right? Like you can go in there with your genetics, carrying the amount of muscle that you have on your frame and balance and just nail that conditioning, and then be super competitive. I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I think the New Zealand's figure athletes I think we've got some really impressive ones. I feel like in figure, I don't want to say it because I don't want to offend anyone, but just off the top of my head, I feel like our figure girls are potentially the most competitive out of any of our, if we had to group them. I just feel like Shay, Jess, the girl, Jasmine, is it Jasmine? I'm sorry if it's not the name, but they can all be competitive on a pro stage. So I mean, there's other obviously good pros in other classes, but I just think as a whole, like that's three, in my opinion, very competitive physiques. So like you said, they don't have to be the biggest. It's figure. It's more about the shape and the structure and the conditioning and whatnot. Obviously you still have muscles.
It's literally just what you've got on your frame. If the person has more muscle but they don't have the aesthetic, then it doesn't help them. So I feel like that's where, it's the same with like bikini and those sorts of classes. If you don't have the right shape for that division, it doesn't really matter how much muscle you pack on or even how shredded you get. So, if somebody has a better balance than you and a better aesthetic than you can't compensate for that. And, by just jamming on more muscle, which you can do, in bodybuilding classes and
open classes.
Yeah. Well, even men's physique in this
physique as well. Yeah.
We see that so much though with females, like trying to force their body into a class. Like we'll see girls who should be doing wellness, but they want to do bikini, so they're just trying to avoid any just constantly trying to shrink their lower body, or the opposite. They should be doing bikini, but they're trying to do like figure blah blah blah. Like a lot of the time, people aren't. They're picking what they like, which is fine. If you just want to do it for fun, that's okay. But if you want to be competitive, like genetics and what actually suits your physique is such a big decision.
So what I see over the years is a lot of people muscling themselves out of their class. So a girl will be a really good bikini competitor, and then next minute too big. Girls will be great figure competitors, next minute too big, which is why I think they've started to bring in more and more classes to try to sort of fill in those gaps and keep those classes truer to what they were initially supposed to be. Like, a pro level figure Olympian now looks like a bodybuilder from the 80s and early 90s, right? Like their conditioning and their level of muscularity. So, and then I've been gradually watching there was a period of time when the bikini girls were starting to get more and more muscles up, like the figure girls, but I think they've knocked that right on the head and brought that back down. So it's interesting. I feel like you could be super competitive because you're because of the package that you have. Be interesting, just be good. From my perspective, just be interesting to see. Plus, I love to see people from this part of the world, especially New Zealand, getting up there and sort of representing. I think it'll be amazing.
For sure. It's gonna be good fun.
Yeah.
All right. We've got some questions. We've got some questions. They're all directed at you, Shay. They don't want to ask me and Harry anything today. We literally didn't get one question.
I've got so many messages about it. Oh my God, you've got Shay! How exciting! Like, bro, what the hell?
Okay, how do you deal with the pressure? And you can answer this in two parts. How do you deal with the pressure of being a pro athlete? So tell us about both because you've been professional in two different sports. So,
what's pressure though? Like, I don't feel pressure being a pro. It's just a status. Like, I feel pressure on my last performance, like more than anything. I don't think the title pro means that you're more important, you've got more pressure on you, or whatever. I think it's just my pressure is literally on my last performance, and that's as a pro. Cool. So now I've just got to go back as a pro and beat that performance. I don't think there's pressure, in all honesty, just with having the title.
What about when you played basketball? Did you feel the same?
I think because as well, like I was the kind of athlete, and it's the same as basketball as it is bodybuilding, is my career kind of was based off people saying you'll never do it. Like you'll never, because I'm 5'3", you'll never be a good basketball player. So like that kind of directed me, and everyone saying you're not going to make it in bodybuilding because you're natural. That kind of directed me. So I think my mentality around it is a little bit different. I kind of just walk around with a chip on my shoulder more than anything.
You just put that one on the other side and then you squat them.
At least you admits it. I think most people.
It's interesting, isn't it? I guess because you've got a level of humility, you don't feel that there's any pressure because you don't think you're important, if that makes sense. I don't mean that in a negative way, but I just mean like a lot of people get to a certain level and they think, oh, I've got to, they have this idea that everybody's paying attention to what they're doing and looking up to them. And, the truth is if you don't have a personality, nobody cares about that anyway. So while people do follow you because we hear a lot about it, that doesn't affect you in a positive or a negative way. It's just another thing, right? It's the best. I feel like that's probably the best way to be.
Like walking around going, I'm a pro, I deserve this. I'm a pro.
No, or like, I know you pros can get into shows, can just go into shows. I still pay to go to shows. I'm not going to walk around and, put my chest in there and think that I'm any more important than anybody else that gets on the stage just because I have a card that tells me I'm a pro that cost me a fucking fortune. That does make me more important.
It's funny, like hearing you say these things, because most people I know in this industry who are doing well, at some point they were told by some fuckwit, oh, you can't do that, you can't do it, like be realistic, like, you know, like people are so quick to try and just, you can't do that. And you know why? Because they can't do it.
They can't. Yeah.
They can't do it. So because they can't do it, that means you can't do it, because if you do it, they're going to feel like shit about themselves. So it's this is a lesson to people watching when people say these things. But it also
just based on the fact that you know, with this pro card, do you find that gives you more you get asked to do things like it adds value? I don't know what you do for a living, but it adds value to your you know, do you get asked to do seminars, make presentations, those kinds of things related to the sport?
Yes, I do. But yeah, no, I got asked to do them before as well, so I don't.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, you have a competitive background. Okay, no, that's just interesting for me, because I guess what a lot of people might look at, you know, because we also talk about how people make money and how they survive and what avenues there are to do that. And so so sort of you think, is there an avenue in New Zealand or an interest in that in New Zealand? I know that it's a hard industry sometimes, because a lot of people will just cut everybody down that's around them, that isn't, they're not, you know, I don't want to listen to that person because you know, for whatever reason, I don't really understand it. It's like tall poppy bullshit, right? But I feel like the feeling that I get from a lot of the young and the up and coming, they're so hungry for knowledge, they're so hungry for information, and they're really looking for role models, and they're looking for people that they can model themselves after and get some inspiration from. I find that, you know, you're in that position, right? Like you're in that position where that makes you attractive to people. And I was just wondering, you know, if you're feeling that, and, you know, exploring that as an avenue for sort of business growth.
Yeah, I think the thing about this kind of sport, full stop, is you got to be realistic about it. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's not going to, you know, in every case pay your way and pay for your way. So I work full-time. I have a full-time job outside of the industry. I am the country manager for Speedo, the swimming company. So I do that full-time, very lucky. But what this has given me is the opportunity to get into coaching and to put what I've learned from my mum, from courses that I've done, from training that I've done, from learning from Jordan as well, and put that back into helping clients and giving myself like clients, and being asked and approached to coach, which I didn't think would ever happen. But I think that comes along with the territory of where I've kind of come from. Do I want to do it as a full-time job? Maybe one day, but it's not really I don't think, direction.
Jordan, isn't it refreshing to see a professional bodybuilder who is going to compete on a professional stage, who has a job, makes money, and puts things in perspective,
and doesn't want everything given them for free?
Yeah, is working for stuff. I mean, I for one am both shocked and appalled.
It is refreshing, I can't lie.
I mean, I love to hear it, and I think it's really an important thing for people to hear. And what I do find is, with a lot of the younger ones that I speak to now, when I say young, I mean young to competing, is that they're very much looking at those avenues, or looking at building their life, doing the things that they need to do, and then giving it the right amount of perspective, rather than everybody must know by now, getting the pro card doesn't really mean you're set. Well, definitely doesn't mean you're set. So everyone's sort of working on their own lives as well as that. You know what I mean? So
Harry, I see the opposite. I see the opposite. I see new people, people that I coach anyway. And a lot of the time, one of the first things I'll be like, oh, I want a transformation because I'm going to use it to start my business, or I really want that pro card. And I'm like, fuck, we haven't even done a show yet. Like, just chill, guys.
You're right, Jordan. That's correct. They do have that aspiration, but because they're getting coaching, they've got to make money. They've got a job. They're doing something. They're trying to build a side hustle. Maybe that never comes around, but I think as soon as somebody takes on a coach and starts to look at being really serious about their prep from one year to the next year, all of a sudden the cost that's incurred means I actually need to think about this. I can't just bludge off everybody and do this. I need to, I mean, just eating the amount of Shay needs a food sponsor just for the amount of food you make her eat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So I agree with 100%. I think there's a lot of unrealistic expectation on one end, but I think a lot of people, especially ones I speak to, are like, okay, so I know what I need to do now, much more so than in the past, where people are like, I'm just going to throw everything at this for 2 years. I'm going to take all of the drugs. I'm going to do all of this and this and this. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, even when they do win the nationals, get their pro card, do whatever, then nothing comes of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's levels to it, and there's ways to go about it. Maybe one day we should actually make a whole thing dedicated about maybe that and trying
we can organize seminars.
Yeah, Shay won't want to do it though.
No, I think it just depends who.
You won't want to do it. I'm going to go around telling everyone things about her that she doesn't want me to tell them. But what we were saying before, it is cool because it's rare, and it's another lesson. There's been a lot of lessons today, but it's another lesson that if you want to be good at this, you do need stability in your life, and you can get that stability through being a coach and being a PT. You can, but not everybody can, and for some people it might take time. So you do need that stability behind you, because I've seen it a million times. I've had clients over the years who have had to stop preps because they ran out of money and they couldn't pay for their food, they couldn't pay for their supplements, they just couldn't do it. So especially a lot of the younger guys, and I try and give them, like, I coach heaps of guys who are in their like 18, 19, 20, 21, and I try and give them a little bit of like mentoring, in the sense of like, look, man, like, this is, if you really, because they're 19 and they come to me, hey, my goal is to be on the Olympia stage and blah, blah, blah. The first thing they tell me is that. I'm like, well, that's cool, let's do it, man. But there's a process, and I try and teach them along the way, like, what are we doing? What are you doing during the week? I'm just going to I'm not doing anything at the moment, but I'm going to do a PT course. I'm like, okay, well, that might work out, but how are you going to afford to compete if you're doing nothing, or if you're working 2 days a week? Like, you know what I mean? So this is a professional bodybuilder who's going overseas to compete. She has a job. She coaches as well.
Full-time job. Has made incredible improvements from the last show to now. You've got a second full-time job eating, but there's a lot to be said there. There's a lot to be said about the fact that you have a job that's outside of the industry, is a full-time, I'm sure, high stress, et cetera, job that you've got, and you manage that whilst making improvements, whilst maintaining consistency. And I think that's a really important lesson for a lot of people, because the other question we get all the time is, how do you find balance? And yet somehow you've managed to balance those things out, right?
Yeah.
Kudos to you. Good example.
At the same time, though, it's like, when you see these kids that are coming through and saying, I want to turn pro and I want to go in the first 2 seconds, and they don't have a lot of backing, it's like, well, I wouldn't be able to go and compete overseas as a pro if I did not have my job or XYZ, because the realisticness of what it costs to go overseas and to coach before compete, before even getting on the stage, the logistics of how much it costs if you do not have backing or like a good job or a good income, it's just not going to happen. Like, the goal's pointless.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the ones, the reason why we don't see a lot of pros competing is because they don't manage that side of their lives particularly well, and so they run out of the options stop. The best I can do is, they might go to Melbourne, or they might have gone to the old Aussie Pro Show or something, but
wait for Motor Pro Show on.
Yeah, wait for Mo to put one on so they can drive there. So it's a little bit difficult. And I think that's something that I guess from my perspective, I think people are becoming more aware of, because I have more conversations with them about this kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I look, the same as you, Jordan. I sort of try to tell guys to get all their ducks in a row before they start a prep, rather than piecemeal it as they go.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all been young as well. Like, I remember when I was 19, 20, I didn't give a shit.
You're both still young.
You're
both still really young.
I'm talking like 19, 20. All I cared about was like, how do I put on 20 kilo? I don't care about anything else. you know what I mean? I'm not thinking, oh, it continues, but then obviously you see, it was good for me because I worked for Mo when I was 20, and I saw all the pros either competing or not able to compete, and I saw what he was doing and what he had done, and I like made sense. I was like, well, why isn't this guy competing? Or because he can't afford it. Well, I want to be a good bodybuilder, so that means I need to find out a way to make money, because otherwise I'm gonna get. There's no point putting all this effort in if you get there and then you can't do it anymore. So I saw those things early on and I took it on board, but I also remember a time where I didn't give a shit and I didn't care, and all I cared about was it's chest on Monday, back on Tuesday.
Yeah, but Jordan, I knew you then.
I know, but this is what I'm. But they don't know this.
I knew that you like. Let's be honest, you're an absolute meathead, but you always worked. You always worked. You worked hard at whatever job you were doing. Whatever it was not like you were just sitting at home doing jack shit. I got to pay for my shit, so you went and did it. Whether it was working for Mo, whether it was doing whatever, you're not lazy. You've never been lazy, Whereas I feel like there was a period of time a lot of guys, well, they still do. They come into it and they're kind of lazy to do anything else but bodybuilding. And I sort of think that catches up with you eventually, right? Whereas, I think that you sort of, and then as you grew within the sport, Jordan, you realized that you needed more and more and more to pay for this hobby. And so you did more and more and more. But there wasn't a point in time when you're like, oh, Harry, man, I haven't had a job for 6 months. No, that never happened.
No.
Because we probably would have had a conversation about it at the time. Which I'd remember now and laugh.
It wouldn't even be necessary. That's not acceptable. Imagine being okay. Imagine being okay with just getting handouts all your life till you're like 50.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that, and then talking shit about people who work. Like,
imagine it. Imagine it. It's hard to imagine.
Anyway, Shay, what's been your biggest challenge as a pro?
Competing as a pro.
Yeah.
Just competing as a pro was probably the biggest challenge. I have no issue with training. The food's been challenging. I will not gonna say it's not. Shut up, Harry.
Honestly, it's horrible eating that much. Like it is. It's not even just.
Listen, I remember when I used to have to eat all that food. I still didn't get big.
No,
at least it works. At least it works for you.
It's not a money down the drain, eh?
Actually, just having to compete as a pro probably was the challenging thing, because I don't like competing. So that was a challenge. Sorry.
I like competing.
I don't.
Yeah, I like competing. I don't like the prep. I race it because it has to be done, but I don't really like. I like parts of it, but if I had to pick one or the other, I like the day. Like I love the show day. That's what I do it for, just for that feeling.
Yeah,
but you're the opposite, right?
Yeah. Give me that.
I just like the stage bit. I don't like any other bit of it.
Sorry, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Just the being on stage bit. I didn't even want to do the comparisons. I just used to like doing the posing routine. If you just sent me home after that, I'd be like, yep, see you later.
Happy as.
That'll do. I actually like prep until about 5 weeks out, and then it gets to be like, oh, okay, it's time to dig now. But you're so into it that it's like, it's at the time it's fine, but when you look back, you're like, oh, okay, I've got to do that again. All right.
I could wake up the morning of the show and be content that I'm done.
Oh, nah, see, I'd be heartbroken if I didn't get to. That's how I felt.
Hey, Shay, I heard that you do 100 kilo barbell rows.
Oh, not very well, but
just listen. You let me be the judge of that. 100 kilo barbell rows. I mean, what the hell?
They're not sloppy.
I bet they're not. This is it. Oh, not very well. No, I'm gonna try that tomorrow. I'm gonna try. This is what's lacking in my back thickness. Well, I'm gonna do it relative. I'm gonna take your weight, and then I'm gonna do a calculation on my weight and work out what I need to do. I think for my weight, I need to do 270 kilos.
We did a thing.
Easy.
Yeah, easy. Yeah. If you never see me again, I'm dead.
Have you?
No, that's impressive. I think you should post more training stuff.
I agree.
You're like a crazy lunatic in the gym.
Well, this is quite funny. Like I don't, because this is funny. I got a message the other day. Like my social media is very, very crude. Like my DMs are, wow. I posted a video of training and I get this response from a fake profile and it's like, no one cares. I'm like,
They do.
oh.
You'll be
That
surprised.
was I mean, that was probably someone who cares a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You've got to care a lot to do something stupid
To
like
make a
that.
fake profile, start posting shit.
And like you're replying to 100-kilo barbell row. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, if someone was like fake crying on camera, all right. But like it's 100-kilo barbell row. How are you gonna say anything to that? But you'll be surprised how many people. It's funny, like once you've done things in the industry, you don't realize how people look up to you and stuff. Like, sometimes, you know, even I get messages sometimes, and I'm like, oh shit, like you better show, and oh hey man, how's it? And then like you'll have a quick conversation for like 20 seconds, and then move off, and they'll message you after that, and they'll something really nice about how good it was to meet, and you're like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, how you took time and done. It's. I mean, I think you should never underestimate your impact at all, because you have a lot of impact. And I think that as much as it's funny, it's human nature, isn't it? You'll get 1,000 people say something good, and you'll get one person say something bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that'll be the thing that we sort of we kind of think about. I mean, I'll be honest, whatever I post, I just don't really care what anybody says about it.
No.
Do you know what I mean? But I post it because I understand that, especially in terms of training, and I've got to write some ridiculous shit sometimes, but somebody might either I post it because I want somebody to get a laugh out of it, or sometimes because you know, I understand a lot of people that I talk to and that I deal with might be looking at and thinking, okay, so Harry's an older guy, he still manages to maintain this and this and this, and there's some aspect of motivation for them. And I feel like I kind of think, like, I don't really care about the negative commentary that anybody might say. That doesn't really bother me, you know, because 100% nobody's ever going to say that right to me.
No.
You know what I mean? That's not how they work. And then, but the positive feedback for me, I mean, I've been in the industry for obviously a lot longer than you guys, because I'm 1,000 years old. And the positive impact on it for me that I have on people, it's amazing. It's the thing that motivates me, because I feel like if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't really care about it. But because I get so much positive feedback, and now people that I might have, I mean, I'm sure you're at the stage now as well, Jordan, with coaching, where people that you have coached and worked with have started to do things themselves, and you feel like I'm a part of that, you know, like, you know, without sort of trying to be a dick or anything, you know, I feel really like I was a part of your journey, Jordan, for a few years there. And, you know, and it's so exciting to me to see people that I've had a dealing with. And now, you know, instead of me talking to a teenage kid, I'm talking to somebody who's better at, you know, most aspects of the business than me. And, you know, and is achieving at a really high level. And that makes me, I feel like a sense of pride and achievement. So I think anything that you do, Shay, you know, don't underestimate exactly how many messages I got in between Jordan posting that you were going to be on the podcast and today. When did you post that, Jordan? Yesterday?
I got the first message I got was from Carter, and she was like, how is she natural? She's like, it doesn't make sense. And I was like, I don't know. But
it's great. It's crazy. So I think you can't underestimate your impact, and it's refreshing. I think your depth of experience is really refreshing. You know what I mean? It's not so insular. It's not just, well, I was just a bodybuilder and I've been eating, you know, I've been living in the cave eating 6 meals, and I think I've been. There's a relatability that's great.
And I think you get to a point where you just have to embrace the bullshit you get, because it used to really bother. I used to get really bothered by it when it would come to me, and it would like live in my head, and I'd get pissed off, and I'd be like, I'm going to show you, rah, rah, rah. And then the better I got and the more I did, the more it happened. So I kind of got to the point where I'm like, well, this is a good thing. So rather than bite back, I mean, Shay, you've heard things about me. Harry, you've heard it, seen it over the years.
I started those rumors.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? And
yeah.
You just got to the point where I'm like, well, rather than retaliate to this, I'm just going to post up something good. I'm going to post a client transformation. I'm going to, you know, something positive. And all that's going to do is make them more upset, because they're obviously doing it because they feel like insecure or intimidated. It's going to make them more upset, but it's also going to positively impact my business because someone will see that transformation and want to work with me. So that's how I started viewing it years ago. And now it's at the point where I just laugh. I'm just like, fuck, I'm just so used to it now. And I think you're getting that way yourself when it comes to people, because I know you used to get really upset when people would be like, you're not natural, you're a liar, and you used to blow up, you make stories about it. And I think now you're getting to the point where you're like, this isn't going anywhere. I'm only going to get bigger. Like, when you do this next show, I'm telling you now, people are gonna. It's good. It's drug tested because, you know, it's drug tested, so you're obviously natural. But it's only going to get worse for you. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot more positive things as well. Like the amount of girls who will see that and be like, like that's achievable. Like it's going to be wild. It already is.
I think there's a very good lesson there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, I think it's like I said to you, Jordan, I think really early on, I was like, if you see me buy into this shit, tell me to pull my head in. Like, if you see me posting the stories or sharing what they've said, tell me to pull my head in because it's not worth it. Like, I was really bad. I think every year I've gotten better, but like I was really bad at one point and it made me wild. I was so wild. Now I'm just like, okay, I understand it now. Like back then, I don't think I understood it. Now I'm like, okay, yeah. All right, whatever.
Maybe we can do it. We can start a course helping people deal with the anger they feel.
Anger management.
Anger management, but specifically related to internet feedback. This is coming from a guy who once drove from Wellington to Auckland because I had an argument with a guy over the phone. Then we spoke, and then I drove back.
They spoke.
Wow.
They spoke. They had a conversation. Words. Shook hands, and it was all. Isn't it funny how as soon like how people's tone changes once things like that happen, though, Harry? Like people are so loud on the internet, on the phone.
Yeah.
And so,
that's what I mean. That's why you can't be offended.
That's just cowardly shit.
It's not. It's partly. I think people can't deal with being confronted with their own bullshit, and I've been in that position where people have come up to me and said, "Oh, listen, Harry, you know, I heard you said," and then I've had to sort of go, "Yeah, that's what happened. What now?" You know what I mean? And then, but it makes you think about, okay, maybe I need to think about how I address that because, you know, sometimes, look, I've got this idea, I've got this personal ideology that if I say something and my intention is to upset you, I really don't care. But if I accidentally upset you, I used to say that was a bonus, but now I'll apologize for it. I'm like, oh no, that wasn't my intention. Yeah, I'm sorry that you're offended, but yeah, but I think that, you know, I mean, I'm an older guy. When you wanted to offend somebody, they knew it was you. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, you know,
fake profiles back then.
Very blank face.
No profiles.
Nobody cares, Shay. You only take pros, Jordan.
No, that wasn't a fake profile.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He didn't lie.
That's also true. That's also true.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, that's good. I'm so excited about seeing how you progress, and now I know that you're going to do more training footage. That's going to be good for us. We're happy about that.
I can't wait for this footage.
Can't wait for this footage.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be.
What are you training tomorrow?
Tuesday.
What do you got tomorrow?
Back.
Back.
No,
Shoulders. Oh, cool.
That's a good one.
Shoulder press. Nice.
Yeah. Dumbbells. Do the dumbbells.
Yeah, she does.
Like the dumbbells. Sit the dumbbells. Grab the 60s. Put it on like a slightly lean back, and then have everyone tell you, "Well, this is not a shoulder press."
I'll just do this.
Yeah, no. That's what I get.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I only got, but for me, that's full range of motion. I got short arms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you making
I
fun?
feel it.
Why are you making fun of me, bro?
Don't let Denver hear that.
And I don't even do them slowly, bro. I just throw that shit up.
Throw it.
All caution to the wind.
Do we have anything else to say before we wrap up? No, nothing.
Shay, what do you have to say to your audience? How approachable are you if people see you? Don't do this.
That's what she'll do. That's what she'll do.
You just be like earphones in, so I can't hear you.
I'm approachable, kind of.
I think that
Yes,
you don't view yourself as a role model because you're a level of humility that's really amazing.
You need more of an ego.
But I feel like
Little
no,
bit.
you don't.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, you listen, get on this podcast a few more times, you'll definitely develop that. Or we'll wreck you, one or the other. But yeah, I think just it's good to see somebody coming up who's great and then has such a relatable to everyday life story. It's very different when you have somebody whose life is completely the industry. So it's nice to hear a little bit more of your story, which I'm not going to lie, I didn't know much about until I messaged you the other day, and I feel like we went like 3% into your backstory.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like your mum was a competitive bodybuilder for many years. I remember your mother, your uncle. I also remember him. So it's just interesting that to me it's fascinating because it shows a hand down of like not just the interest, but also the work ethic and the same, I guess the same mentality towards bodybuilding and how you prepare for shows. You know, that's a different reflection of your upbringing and I think those things are great for people to sort of grab a hold of and take on board.
I think as well,
Oh,
like, you can't bullshit this process. Like, your people around you are very, very pivotal. Like you said, like my mother and my father and my brothers, they're like godsends in my journey and stuff. And like, if you're like just starting or whatever, and you've got a bunch of idiots around you, or you're on social media, like there's your like affirmation and your support system, like whatever it is, just make sure it's a good one. Because it's, yeah, I don't know, it's not really as glamorous, I think, as everyone makes it out to be. So
there's a lot of alone time, and I think we can all say that we've had a lot of support along the way from the people who have no real relation to the sport sometimes. You know, I see the photo of you and your mum together, and it really makes me happy. You know, like I train with my son now, and you know, I mean, he's got no aspirations to compete or anything, but I really enjoy the process, and what it does is it takes away all the noise that he would get if he was doing it himself.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people say to him, man, it must be so good training with your dad. And of course he looks at them and goes, have you seen my dad? You train with him. He's a lunatic. But he also doesn't have to second guess himself or think of anything. He just goes, you tell me what to do. So one of the guys said, we trained legs yesterday, and the guy, one of the guys from the gym's like, man, he just walks in here. He's so relaxed. He's just chill. He doesn't care. It's leg day today. And I'm like, and then Eric just goes, yeah, I just do what I'm told to do, man. I don't really, well, put another plate on. Sure. Okay. Do how many reps? Okay. You know what I mean? So I love that. I see the relationship that I build with my son. I train my two girls as well. They're little, but we you know, I make them very active, and they both know how to do the basics. And they both talk about it, and I love that. I love that. I think that you know, and I always say that when you want to try and do something, that you grab that support, you get everybody involved in it. It creates more accountability for yourself, but it enables the people closest to you to participate in what you're doing, and it makes them feel some value in your life. So I love to see that.
Well, it's also the same. Like, Mum was my coach for 6 years. You know, she was my coach, you know, right up until November, like when Jordan and I started. And she is the most supportive out of like everybody. You know, like she was my coach, but now she's like, good luck, Jordan. See you later.
Well, we could say the same. You know, like I mean, when I not with coaching wise, but you know, certainly, you know, one of your greatest driving forces in your career, and probably still now, Jordan, is your mother. You know what I mean? And when I started out bodybuilding, my mum used to drive that little van up to every single show that I did, and nobody's voice was louder. And you know, prior to me getting involved in bodybuilding, she couldn't give a rat's about any of that stuff. But as soon as I was in it, she was all about it. So I think that's something that there's something there, I think, for people to kind of, not everybody has that situation, but I try to create that. You know, I tell people, I'll try to create that support circle, try to get those people around you, try to, you know, yes, you do the work. Yes, you do the diet, the discipline's on you, but you can make it easier for yourself. So easier than, you know, not easy, but easier if you have if you surround yourself with the right people.
Sure. And I think it's like who's around you, not necessarily in a positive way, is important. When I say not in a positive way, it's important to also be surrounded by, because, for example, Harry, you'll be the same. Like, our mums didn't know about bodybuilding. They wouldn't be able to look at a lineup and go, that guy should win. They just think we should win because we're perfect. You know what I mean? But then really you should be coming fourth, for example. But it's also important to have people around you, and this goes for anything, that will be straight with you, that will just tell you, like, I feel like this day and age, people go out of their way to find groups or circles that will just blow smoke. I see it on Instagram. I'll see, like, someone will put a post up and 50 comments, and I'm like, they didn't even read what they wrote. They just wrote in, oh, you're a queen, or you're this, or you're that. And it's like, cool, whatever. But you need to have, and that's fine, I'm not saying anything wrong with that, but you also need to have that circle where that's gonna tell you, pull your head in when you're not doing the work you need to do. That's gonna tell you, this isn't a good idea, this is a stupid idea, but we should do this. Or yes, you're, and then when it is positive, it's not always gonna be like that. I mean, it will probably be, if you've got your head switched on, 90% of the time it's probably going to be positive reinforcements. But then that 10% of the time, when you need to be told, like, no, this isn't good enough, or no, we're not, no, you don't look good, you look like shit, you're miles behind, you need to hurry up. And it's funny, Shay, because since I've got to know you a bit more, I feel like you're getting, just with people you deal with, you're getting a bit more like that, not being afraid to say what you need to say, but it only comes from a place of caring. Because if you didn't care, you would just be like, okay, yeah, cool, yeah, awesome. But when you actually give a shit, you're like, I have to say it, because if I don't, what's going to happen? And it's cool. It's been cool to kind of see that, you know what I mean? Like, see that come out. It took me so long to get like that. I used to, when I first started coaching, I would be way too scared to
really.
When I was coaching, I was way. It took me a long time to realize, like, I've just got to say what's on my mind, and if they don't like it, oh well, tough shit. I've had lots of times where clients would not like. I'd be telling them to, like, pull their heads and do the work, blah blah blah. They're telling me, but I am. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. I don't hear from them for 2 days, and then I find out they've been crying to this person. But then 3 days later they come back. I'm sorry, you were right. And then for the next 3 weeks, the progress is like rapid. So. That was a tangent, but what I'm saying is, like, your circle, you know, if you've got a family that supports you, that's
well, you need people that that's a good thing, but you need people that are brutally honest with you. You know, you need to create a sense of accountability with people who whose opinion actually matters and is objective rather than just subjective, right? So you need somebody honest, you know. So for example, I'll ask you if I want an opinion about something that I'm doing, because I know that you'll be honest with me in your opinion of that. Now, whereas I probably wouldn't ask, well, I don't really care what 100 other people say. I don't even ask them. They just tell me anyway, Harry, you should do this. And I'm like, I really do. But if I want to know something, I'll ask somebody whose opinion means something to me. Picking those people is a hard thing, because a lot of people will just pick the person that tells them all the lovely stuff they want to hear. But you need somebody to tell you to lift your game and pick your shit up.
And I'm just going to add something. Because I said about being honest and stuff. If you're watching this, that doesn't mean going and say, like, just because you know someone, being like, hey man, blah blah blah. If they haven't asked you for your opinion, don't give it to them.
I think that's a very key thing, because we get asked.
There's a difference between being someone's coach and doing that, or for them actually going, hey, can I have your opinion? Then okay, go for gold. But if they haven't said anything, don't, unless you're a very close friend of this person, just keep it zipped. Or at least, like, there's all these ways, you don't have to be a dick about it. But yeah, you generally 9 times out of 10, if you just message someone and go, hey, I just wanted to tell you, but I'm not trying to be a dick, it's not going to go down well.
Don't leave a comment.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clear that up, because I didn't want to give that message that, like, everyone should just be honest, because
no, I mean, listen, it's horses for courses, and that's correct. I mean, I think most people are. Fuck, please, dear God, allow some people to understand that, and not all be dipshits. Look, I mean, I feel like the ones who are going to give a negative opinion are going to do that anyway. I guess the key is, if you're the recipient, don't listen to everybody. Pick who you listen to, but also be honest with yourself about who you pick for that role, right?
Exactly. And generally,
like in a bodybuilding sense, I probably literally only ever listen to 1 or 2 people.
but I think that's most people, really.
Yeah, it's just listen.
mean,
Your
some people
opinion
listen to
and
everybody.
Shay's opinion are the only ones that matter to me.
What we like to hear.
Yeah, thanks. Listen, you're a little bit slow giving me my program, Shay. Don't know what I'm supposed to do tomorrow.
I
At least you got hamstrings now.
it's
You gotta
I'm
go?
a bit-
Yeah.
Huh?
No, she's making excuses for not.
She's
having
hurting
a
my
program
feelings.
to- Hamstrings 3 times a week.
Yeah. First of all, she wouldn't do the seminar. Now it's this.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Anyway,
I don't speak English.
anyway, Shay, thank you for coming
Thank you so
on.
much, Shay.
Hope you
Thank
enjoyed
you.
yourself. And I hope you guys took something from that. I'm sure you did. I did, for sure. So, yeah. Anyway, guys.
If you think of 1,000 more questions, and she
Listen,
doesn't
Shay.
get sick of us, we can probably get her back on at some stage.
For sure.
Nah, thanks guys, appreciate it. Always good to yarn.
All right, guys.
Take it easy.
Real life, real talk, never fall, we ain't doing that. Want me fall off, but I can't, I'm just too attached. I was so lost, I ain't going back. Never fall, we on the road, yeah, we on the road.